Hello, fabulous friends and fans. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. This is Synchronicity University, and this is your moment of synchronicity. In this video, we're looking at the moon in the astrology chart when your moon is in the sign of Aries or in the first house, okay? So a big part of this has to do with synthesis. Let me just say that right off the bat, all else being equal. So I'm not looking at right now like aspects that might be placed to the moon. If you are a person who has the moon in the first house and in Aries, you want to consider both parts. If you are a person who has your moon in Aries, but your moon in a whole other part of this chart, a whole other house, then what you want to do is you want to consider the part of this video that talks about the moon in Aries, and you want to watch the video that has to do with the moon in the house that your moon is in, and focus especially on that part of the video. However, there is sort of a natural connection, especially in modern astrology, between house and sign. And so sometimes there can be, again, all else being equal, sometimes there can be a little bit of leeway. Okay, there can be a little bit of the house showing up in the sign and a little bit of the sign showing up in the house, which is why I decided to put them together. But of course, again, if you know that your moon is not in the first house, but it is in Aries, you want to emphasize where I talk about the moon in Aries. So Aries is a sign of a lot of passion, a lot of determination. It's really pure fire, okay? And it's sometimes called the sign of the entrepreneur, the athlete. I think of the sign of Aries as having to do with understanding the competition is within, wanting to be first at whatever it is that you do, and having a certain need to know that you are in some way doing something that allows you to tap into the more passionate part of you, and that allows you to feel in some way like you are winning. And so for some people, this is going to take the place of actually being interested in sports. Moon and Aries people tend to have a stronger interest in sports than others might. This also has to do with the military as well. And so that might be an area of life that fascinates. Battle might be an area that fascinates as well. In fact, I have met many a sports fanatic with moon in Aries. And also it's been interesting to me, I've met people who ended up working for, I had a client once and she worked for years in emergency services, you know, was the nicest person you ever wanted to meet. But when she was at her job, she was really focused. It was like an athlete. It was like a police officer. Even though that's not what she was, she answered 911 calls and she did her job really, really well. She had the moon in Aries. Now, the moon was conjunct the ascendant, and so her appearance wasn't so much as an Aries, but she certainly was fulfilling that need that she had. And I'll talk a little bit more about moon conjunct the ascendant in the first house in just a moment. The thing also with Aries is the first sign, and it has to do with sort of a very immediate sense of who you are. Like, this is who I am. Identity becomes very important to people with the moon in Aries. And the thing is that this can be one of the placements that is more traditional than other placements might be. So all else being equal, if you've got some interesting aspects of Uranus to that moon, it can offset some of this. But in general, if you've got the moon in Aries, there's something about you that tends to be a little bit more traditional, that tends to like sort of social structures and comforts of the way that things are, the way that things have been as well, than other signs might necessarily. And so it really is about tapping into your passion. That's going to be really important. As I said in the introductory video, if you are looking at life purpose, you have to look at the moon, because life purpose means nothing if you're not honoring your moon and where it is that you find your sense of emotional fulfillment. And I do think that moon and Aries people, they tend to have like sort of an ambition or a drive or a passion that is rooted in childhood. So really, Aries as the first sign has to do with early childhood. It tends to show up really early on. These are people with a very strong sense of their own heartbeat, if you will. And so those passions can be connected to that as well. There tends to be a rhythm to their passions, whether that's a rhythm in the presentation or whether that's actually doing something like being a drummer, being a musician in a type of music that is very sort of rhythm and beat heavy. But I do think that with these people, with Moon in Aries, it really comes down to passion. If you're not living a life that feels like you're really in touch with your heart, you're really in touch with what it is that you are really driving to do, it becomes a lot more difficult to do just about anything. So you've got to trust your passion and go with it with all of you if you're really going to find a sense of self. Now, Aries also has to do with the eyes. It has to do with the head. It has to do with the muscular structure as well. And so because wherever the moon is a part of life that's always changing, you kind of want to watch for, like, especially water in these areas, parts of this changing. These are people who can be at some points in life very muscular and appear very muscular, and at other points in life be decidedly softer. And this becomes especially true if you've got the moon either on the ascendant or in the first house. So the very first thing, you know, moon on the ascendant or in the first house, you tend to see round faces, you tend to see big eyes, distinctive eyes, you tend to see paler skin relative to their own, like, family, if you will. So if you look at them within their family dynamic, their skin tends to be paler in relation to their family, in relation to their peers within the family dynamic. And the skin tends to be smoother as well. Particularly the ascendant, but the first house to a certain extent as well, has to do with appearance. And so the weight can really fluctuate for these people as well. But there certainly is a creamy element, if you will, to the skin. The skin can be very sensitive as well, can go through periods where it's more prone to redness than it may be at other points in life. So changes to the appearance, number one sort of symbol, number one giveaway that this person has the moon on the ascendant. Now, also with moon in the first house types, care, especially self-care, care for another, becomes that much more emphasized, becomes that much more important. So for these people, there really is a need to nourish themselves properly, nourish themselves well. The sign of the moon gives you indications as to what types of foods ultimately are going to feel most nourishing. With the moon in Aries, you want to have lots of spicy foods, tend to be really strongly indicated. And also, I gotta say, strong protein dense foods like meat or other sort of substitutes to that, but very protein dense, tend to be strong, especially under the fire element. But moon in the first house types, care for yourself, cares for other, becomes especially dominant. And there needs to be an acceptance of emotion. Emotion can come up very quickly, and it can also dissipate very quickly. These are also people who need to understand their emotions, and at different periods in life are going to go through processes where they have to be more honest with themselves about where it is that their insecurities are motivating them more than a genuine desire to actually acknowledge and address what it is that they really need. So there does tend to be a shifting emotional reality there, but through all that, they are learning to put their fears aside instead to embrace a stronger sense of self, and the sensitivity that these people have will eventually be translated into a great strength. Well, thank you so much for watching. Please keep your questions, comments, feedback coming. Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, nadiyashah.com, and YouTube comments as well. So grateful for this moment with you. Until we connect again, take care. Thank you for watching this lesson as part of Synchronicity University. You can go online at synchronicityuniversity.com or click on your screen if you're on YouTube right now to access even more video lessons, to access horoscopes, interviews with some of the most amazing astrologers in the world, and so much more.